So these people, they got envious of your growth and your development and the fact that you evolved past the version of yourself that you used to be. Basically, you used to be this version of yourself that wasn't as mature, wasn't as aware, wasn't as wise, wasn't as emotionally intelligent. But, and while you were in this behavior, while you were this version of yourself, people saw that they had, you know, grew past you. They had outgrew you. They had surpassed you in levels of growth and maturity. And they used to look down on you for this. They used to look at you as inferior to them, and they felt that they were superior to you. These people thought that they were better than you, and they thought that they were more mature than you, more wiser than you, more evolved than you were, and they looked down on you in this whole process. But what happened later is that you went through a spiritual awakening. And when you went through the spiritual awakening, you started to develop a deeper awareness of yourself. And when that awareness came, you became aware of yourself and more aware of life and how life is. And you had this broader perspective on life, so you became aware. And another thing is, while you were going through your spiritual awakening, you started to heal some of those wounds, heal the pain that had been suppressed, and you started to mature emotionally. You became more emotionally intelligent because you started to see the world differently. You started to see your life differently. You just matured. And another thing is that once you matured and once you evolved, your emotional intelligence level went from like here to here in a matter of a short duration, a short amount of time. Your emotional maturity level had increased. And once that level increased, you had then outgrew the people that outgrew you. So you surpassed them in your growth because they grew, but you grew way past them once you had your growth. Because when you were going through your spiritual awakening, you were growing at a rapid rate. And that rapid rate that had you growing had you surpassing other people in your growth. And once you surpass certain people in your growth, that's when people started to have an issue with you. Because it's like, how dare the person that they outgrow them? How dare the person that they deemed as immature, as emotionally unintelligent, become emotionally intelligent and become so mature? Your maturity level was threatening to them because you were more mature than they were. You were wiser than they were. You were much more emotionally intelligent than they were because you had completely surpassed them in your level of growth. You were a late bloomer, but once you bloomed, you blossomed. You blossomed. You bloomed like a lotus flower. You bloomed like a butterfly. You bloomed so beautifully. And you grew to a version of yourself that you needed to be. You needed to be a more mature version of yourself, a more aware version of yourself, because it was time for you to grow. And these people, they got bent out of shape because they were so used to looking down on you and looking at you as if they were better than you. But then they started to see you as being better than them, being above them. They placed you on this pedestal and put you up here because that's where you were. And they saw you appear on this pedestal and they felt threatened by that because they wanted themselves to be on that pedestal and you to be looking up to them. But it turned out that they were looking up to you. These people secretly admired you. They admired your maturity level. They admired how much you grew and developed and evolved. And they admired that about you. They respected that about you. But they just weren't willing to admit this to you because then that would be like a threat to their ego. But despite their ego being bruised because you evolved, you grew to a totally different person that they don't even recognize anymore because you're just this grown, evolved person. So yeah, they got a little bit envious of your growth because they were comparing their growth to your growth and they saw that you had grew past them. But you needed to be that way. You needed to outgrow them because you are the cycle breaker, breaking generational curses, and you needed to outgrow those people. You may have been a late bloomer, but the flower that blooms in adversity is the brightest one of all.